Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Dan Tom here, host of the Protect Your Neck podcast. Late as usual. You might see me from places like Action Network, where my analysis is up at for gambling, as well as, of course, MMAJunkie.com. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. I don't know if in a slightly different way or whatever, but hopefully you're listening to this before. I don't even know my own intro anymore. You guys notice that? I kind of like messed everything up since I changed up like the intro words and everything. It's just how the show goes, man. I'm just happy to be here. Happy you guys are here, though I don't deserve you. I definitely don't deserve the like button. But we are going to be breaking down, of course, UFC Vegas 77, UFC on ESPN 49, UFC Fight Night, Home versus Silva, Bueno Silva? We'll go Bueno Silva. That's what's on the old thumbnail there. Thank you guys for joining in. We got my man Jimmy Kudo, of course, moderator with the mostest. Of course, the other mostest as well. Of course, my guy Ghost Phantom. I got to give him love. Special apologies out to you guys. You guys are sitting here holding down the fort, holding down the castle. And I will not forget you guys. Aside from the shouts and my appreciations, I will be probably reaching out to you guys definitely before year's end. But definitely want to do something nice for, you guys in general, but especially those stepping up and helping this program behind the scenes. My guy Mark Fellows in the house. He just, as long as he's doing a cheers vicariously, you can live vicariously through his cheers and beers. I think you're doing pretty well. My guy Mark Fellows in the house. DT, what's up, my African brother? Technically, we have roots there, right? Oh Jesus, we're starting hot. We're starting hot. I know. We'll get to Australia, the good, the bad, and the ugly, my friend Mark. You are, of course, the good, the great of Australia there. Ghost Phantom in the house. There he is. Good to see you, Dan. Excited to talk MMA, not Home versus Bueno Silva. I know. We'll be getting on with the show, though. We'll be talking some MMA for sure, doing a recap of UFC 290. I'll try not to beat or belabor points. But if anybody's got a right to victory lap after getting beat down, or just making up for the lack of victory laps, or just for, some decent calls and a great night, more importantly, of course we're going to get into UFC 290. For those of you guys listening in the future, 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated, especially that you guys have the luxury of fast forwarding. Live viewers, unfortunately, you're stuck with me and the normal show format, which will be a top to bottom recap of the previous card, which of course is UFC 290. Maybe a little break of the shout into the chats and whatnot. Again, super chat people are a priority, but as you guys know, it's not exclusive or any of that garbage. I'll get to you as long as you are a good-hearted person there. Sorry for the microphone check. No, we'll get to that, and then of course we break down the card that is on the top of the week that we're getting to. Right, we got plays, picks, looking to enjoy whatever your thing is. Maybe you just are weird and like hanging out here. That's fine too. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I appreciate you. We'll get to that top to bottom. And, of course, at the very end, I will recap my picks and plays and my defense. Not all shows do that. And if you have ADD like me, it's easy to lose track and go, what the heck? I just read those, whether it's listening or reading a book. I don't know if you guys get that. You're like, I just went through 3 pages and I got to go back. God damn it. I'm really bad with that, right? So it's for you, it's for me, it's for everybody, and it's for free for what it's worth. Still not coming up places like Stitcher, which I've held out long enough to where now I don't need to do it. Stitcher is no more. I procrastinate. I do need to get on the old SoundCloud. If there's any other places that you guys think I should be on that I'm not showing up, like any Pod Beans or Flick Beans or whatever the kids call it these days. Jesus, Dan, really. Sorry. Just feel free to shout that. Of course, likes and all that stuff. Shares. It's all great. Even though I don't necessarily deserve it. I will say, in my defense of being late, not playing the violin. There's a lot going on, to be honest. But yeah, I missed dinner and a planned workout I wanted to get to. Still kind of adjusting my schedule, both sleep and otherwise. Got a lot going on from all sides here. And but good news is that you guys don't care about that. We'll push through that. But I just say that to say that I did get a lot of some good research on a card that really doesn't deserve it. So I will have some takes, for a decent pod of the card. I even had to do a little extra this week because I got my video in early for next week's Tibura versus Aspinall. Ass and all, baby. We'll get to that, of course, next week. But yeah, let's get to it here. Appreciate you guys in the chats. Appreciate the likes as well. James Kendrick in the house. Hope you were having a great week, my man. UFC 290 was great. This card is not. Yeah, it's not too great. What also isn't too great is me missing out on some shouts. If you guys follow me on the apologies if you haven't gotten through yet. I still got to do a cleanup there on the Instagram. But if you guys follow me in general, you'll see me usually shout out my guy, D Loves Turmeric Tonic. Not Master of Love, the round 3 specialist out there. I see you still listening, liking the tweets and whatnot, my guy. But no, talking about my guy, Dustin Love there. At theturmerictonic.com, use code PROTECT15 for 15% off. Great lemon, ginger, and turmeric. I still got a bottle in my fridge, and I forgot to grab it for the broadcast. I've been in such a scramble over here. Just got out of the shower. And yeah, just forgot to, my man sent me a nice care package, just a good dude, and great personal news on his front, which I won't share, but just want to give him a shout. Always rooting for people, just the good people in the community to do well, rooting for them personally, their business, and otherwise. And this ain't even a paid shout, and vice versa. Just good people doing good things for each other, which is ideal, man. So I definitely want to support and shout those who support and show that love. I got my guy Mike. I'll just I don't know his last name. Not that I would say it, so I'll just go code name Mike from Frozen, baby. My old not the Disney movie. Although Mike is a man of mystery, perhaps he has a credit there too. We used to work together, and in fact, he was one of the only guys I could back in my my grocery store job. He was one of the only guys I could talk like MMA with and stuff. And he actually listened to a podcast that is still going today, an OG one that I have people and then I shout all the time, the MMA Analysis. And this was before I had my podcast and stuff, and then I was still training to compete, got my concussion. That led me into this here job at 2015-ish. So I probably worked with Mike, 11 to 2012 to 20. Anyways, so yeah, I ran into him at the a local dog place here, and it was good to see a familiar face. And he's like, yeah, I still listen to the podcast, this podcast here. And I'm like, why would you torture yourself? Which I say to everybody who listens to this thing. But I wanted to give him a shout, man. I don't know why people listen to this show, but I love you guys that do it, whether I know you in real life or I don't, right? So, whether I met you or not. So I wanted to get those shouts out of the way, and we will move on to 7:32 here. UFC 290 recap. I'm going to pull up results because I am a profession now. We went 8-5 overall in picks, 0-1 in parlays. We did I warned myself. I said I could count on one hand. Maybe I've done one. And maybe go back to going to none parlays after that. We'll get to that. 1-0 in straight plays. We'll definitely get to that. 1 out of 6 in round flyers. We'll talk about that. That's all you need, baby. It doesn't look great 1 out of 6 numbers wise, but like I say, at the numbers we're playing, we'll be okay. 1 out of 4 in the round robins, which of course means nada es mucho for the long shot parlay. 0-1. We still ended up plus 3.55U, which is... It's crazy, man. We'll definitely talk about that when we get to the co-main event, which will be after the main event. But essentially, this is and I'm a very anti-recency bias guy. I'm a very curmudgeon, very go against the grain. Oh, you're such a contrarian. Genuinely, you're just an asshole, or anything in between. All the above. It's fine. I'll take it. That being said, man, it was one of the best cards ever. It really was. I've heard some cards mentioned, and it's weird. Like a UFC 217 was mentioned. That was like the Dillashaw Garbrandt rematch, I believe, or the rematch was at 227. That's right. It was the first fight, the Bisping GSP, right? I just legendarily ate crap on that card, and I almost wonder, does that affect how good a card is? This is maybe more for the gambling crowd can weigh in here in the chat or otherwise, right? And that is ultimately the big fear. I'm good on my money management. I hope you guys are good on your money management. Betting is a very dangerous thing, even when you're doing it for air quotes fun, right? So even if you're doing it for fun, your air quotes good on your money. Hopefully you're really honestly being solid on that. But even if you're being solid on that, one of the big risks I find, right? Because I feel like I'm comfortable in those departments. But because again, nobody's invulnerable to any department, mind you. But one way or another is that I feel like it can cut on your enjoyment as a hardcore, and that's why I always express. And it sounds like I'm being ungrateful, when I'm talking to fellow analysts, maybe it's a self-deprecating hat in hand because, you hear like a lot of analysts who don't do the gambling stuff like talk down about MMA gambling, anybody involved in it, and I don't blame them. I'm not hating on them for doing so, but it's like, it's like the Rogan thing with early MMA in the 90s where it's like it felt like you were working in porn. We're not quite out of that. We're obviously elevated from that, much so. But within that, there is still a bit of that exists, and it definitely goes toward the MMA gambling side, which again I've always said is one of the lower rungs of hell. Welcome to the show. It risks ruining it as a hardcore, whether you love it as a fan or you're a technical snob or anything in between. I like to consider myself both. I'm not above the Korean zombie, Leonard Garcia, Nam Pham, fights, or anything like that. And, UFC 189, of course, is like the greatest card since that. And that, regardless of what you think, it's obviously one of the greatest cards of all time. And that card was great, and so was just before that year, which ties into it, which was another great card in Mexico. You had Cain Velasquez versus Fabricio Verdun. Verdun was, of course, one of my biggest hits. Many longtime listeners know I always talk about that as gambling hits. That felt great, especially, you're fading the all-time guy who's like, well, how could you fade this guy, right? And I had parlays that included Verdun at big numbers that tied in Robbie Lawler, who we'll get to, and the parallels of UFC 189, Robbie Lawler, with Alessandro Pantoja. Who kind of saved me from this feeling that I'm talking about, right? And because, kind of like Pantoja, he's coming into a title fight, and even though Robbie Lawler was actually the champion, lest we not forget, people were already talking about Rory McDonald as the anointed champ coming into that fight, fulfilling the next GSP prophecy, next Canada's Canadian dream, who back then Canada was already needing to look to their next guy, and that's why I have hearts out to Canada and want them to rebuild. Was happy for them to have such success recently because it's been since like back in this card that I'm citing, and everybody was already anointing it. And you hear Robbie, talking about that fight that he got inducted to the Hall of Fame this past week, which was another worry of why I picked against him. And I'll definitely own to that. I don't give a shit. I've never been happier. Honestly, this easily could have an argument for number one. I know recency bias. I've never been happier to be wrong about a pick. But you hear him talking about that in the induction speech, saying he was coming for respect, and Robbie just being this nice guy, even back in his menacing days and knocking out Frank Trigg days. You just hear all these talk about character and these things like rivals like Matt Serra and Hughes. Serra would be like, I still always had respect for Robbie. He was always great with the group. And you see that you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of that. He just came out to kill, man. And he was kind of like a pit bull. Has those two sides to him, easily misunderstood. And just a class through and through, and just a fantastic fighter to watch, right? So he comes through, and I just seeing him as an underdog, against coming in against Rory McDonald was like, wow, this is. Do we not watch the first fight? I know it was a competitive fight, but Robbie has not lost a step since then, and that was, I had Conor McGregor at minus 105 odds, I believe, against Chad Mendes, so that came through. I can't remember any of the bets because kind of similar again, kin to this card, it was kind of the last two fights that I was heavily invested in as a fan, pre and as a bettor pre going into it. And I think I remember losing some beats. Maybe I took a shot on Tim Means over Matt Brown or something. Sounds like something I might do, even though I love Matt Brown too as well. I'm a big Tim Means fan. He was probably the underdog, rightfully so, in that spot. But yeah, I just remember coming up big, and I remember how amazing of a card, and it was an amazing card. And I remember wondering, did I just get away with one? I mean, we all just got away with one if you're playing betting in MMA and you won. You got away with one. I'm sorry to break it to you. You're not special. You got away with one. But I was like, yeah, did I just get away with one? Did I just risk ruining this amazing card for this silly thing like betting? Sorry for that long kind of diatribe, but hopefully that kind of makes some sense with you guys, whether you gamble on it or not. And this was very much the same. I mean, which is always the case for me. Not even just, oh, woe is me on this losing the bad beat, blah, 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 cold streak, blah, whatever. No. Like, even like on my best years, on 4 to 5 card winning streaks or whatever, that seemed to have been the average for a little bit there, which is always insane. When you have those little bursts like that. Big wins or not, right? Just getting out with a win. But even on those cards, like, it was really seldom that I hit. Even before I was more resigned to just picking and choosing my spots like I am now, and more paid to focus on main card spots like I am now. Even before that, when I was really trying to spread the love genuinely, now it would make sense that my prelim picks do poorly because, again, you guys notice I start from the top down, right? Unless there's something really good like a flyweight fight I really want to get to. But even back then, when I was, air quotes, researching and tapering heavily, the prelim, those are always the fights that are just fucking wild cards, right? A lot of the times, and harder to pick, less proven products, so on and so forth. So I was always used to being in the spot where you start off slow. But yeah, UFC 290 was a card where it definitely was that. And I think we were 0 for on literally everything until the last 2 fights. So let's start from the top. We, of course, had Alexander Volkanovski defeating Yair El Pantera Rodriguez. UFC 290 results. Using this Nighthawk router. Hopefully that's a little better now. These for connection. I'm going to test that. I'm going to be doing another MMA Rewind with my guy Braschuk, speaking of the MMA analysis. We're looking at some, maybe some Strikeforce cards if I can tip the hand that far. But yeah, I'm just bullshitting with you guys as I pull up results here. But yeah, Volkanovski wins in round 3. Of course, we did flyers. Not the typical .17. We went Scottie Pippen, baby. I know. .33 units across the board. Played a shotgun sprinkle of 3 rounds. Usually it's 2 rounds for a 3-round fight. 3 rounds for a 5-round fight is my style if I've got a certain read on it. Unless I'm on the other side, of course, or I've done the first 2 rounds if I'm on a side of the earlier finisher. Of a 5-rounder, but you just get the sexier numbers later on, so when you have those opportunities, I love to play those, and especially at the book, if you are going to go down to the book, why not for a guy like Volkanovski, why not for a big card like UFC 290, why not for big numbers, which, even though this is a dangerous card to play, I may do it just for some big late round numbers here, just for a small sprinkle, because again, if you go rounds 3, 4, and 5, and even if you do step it up to the .33 units, which is almost double my normal .17 units, 17 ducats, dollars, $33, speaking in direct transfer, that's actually how I play, keep it easy for you guys, and keeps me honest, that's for damn sure, because I'm usually been a beer money guy for the majority of my gambling career, but yeah, you still end up at just under a unit of exposure for a juiced up number, right? That was a good way to cut it down. Of course, I still wanted some coverage in case it went to decision. I put stuff in like whether I took it straight up for my prop squad things, like a round 2 Robert Whittaker. We'll talk about those hot rounds. The analysis was right or not. It was absolutely wrong on the Whittaker fight. We'll get to that. I definitely have no crutch to stand on there. But like, I took like those round 2 shots and stuff there. I still wanted some action on Whittaker since I thankfully, right? I hate to steal my guy Clint's dodge the bullet term over there, but oh my goodness, I was almost drunk on power. It was just set up for a Dan Tom trap. My guy Whittaker, who I never pick against, and I didn't pick against here. My analysis was wrong. But boy, we'll get to that. But yeah, of course, Volkanovski cashes, does some really cool stuff. The southpaw hooks really had a feel for that. And this shot, those step-throughs really worked here. Didn't work as well with Makhachev, who is much better at distance management tools like range and countering tools, like your classic southpaw check hook in conjunction with the kick. We saw people like AKA's stablemates of Makhachev's, Luke Rockhold, how many miles he could get out with that. Makhachev, of course, a more technical striker and offers a bit more to the table than Luke Rockhold, especially with the left hand. But yeah, Rodriguez, obviously, despite his improvements, boxing range not his strongest range, so that was really cool for Volk to get it done that way. And then you got the recreation of Frankie Edgar, between round 3 and 4. Which again, I have a lot of parallel themes going into this fight as far as that goes, and that's just face value stuff, not pound for pound technical detail stuff. Obviously, no offense to the ladies, just saying. I'm not trying to make an apples for apples comparison. Everybody gets mad when you make comparisons. I'm just talking about certain things that are apropos here. But yeah, we go to that definitely helped, right? That was like, I think it was like, at 0.33 units, even at the lower numbers, you're looking at a minimum of a 3-unit cash. And then it was like 4 units in change. Sorry for the dog eating. Good boy, Benjamin. Of course, you guys got to eat when you have an audience, right? Literally. It's not a very big audience, though, Ben. Sorry. Appreciate you guys being here. Hit that like button. But yeah, and then of course round 5 would have been like 500 ducats or whatever. Yeah, round 3, I'll take it. It gets us across the finish line. It would have been probably just a slight loss, but I would have been okay with it because I just felt so good seeing my guy Alessandro Pantoja win. Okay, got my guy Feño in the house. What up, Feño, from the Fight Site? You should be listening to Feño's early prelim podcast and his preview podcast, which unfortunately we're only blessed with for pay-per-views. But again, he does the Monday podcast on the Fight Site feed, and I'm going to get Feño back on for one reason or another, who has been just a great presence to this show in more ways than one, my man. He says, Yair getting away with punching without boxing a lot lately. Oh, correctamundo. He says he couldn't do the janky head movement here with the wrestling threat. Yeah, that was apt. Yeah, that's a great, that makes sense, Yeah, you're not a kind of guy. I mean, he kind of crumbled at the end there, but as far as like pressure of the moment, I wouldn't have blamed it on that. I think that was much more sensible. The invisible yet very visible and present wrestling threat that Feño just pointed out. I'll get to your guys's the rest of you guys is here in a second here. We got a lot of Robbie Lawler love. I'll maybe jump over to that for that. Appreciate you guys in the chat. See Marcus Mustard in there, Rain Lamina in the house. And of course the usual suspects. Hit that like button. Appreciate the love, guys. Yeah. So again, it wouldn't have mattered if that didn't happen because man, I just felt so good in the feels for Pantoja. Again, the Robbie Lawler parallel. A guy. I know Robbie Lawler is not Brazilian, although shouts. Again, Robbie Lawler is a guy that could have been. If UFC. Who doesn't do woke shit, even though they celebrate every month, but Asian Pacific Islander month. Robbie Lawler, part Filipino, would have been a great, a fantastic person for that. But anyways, yeah. But no, where the fuck are we at right now? But yeah, the parallels there. Yeah, he's not Brazilian, but the same kind of like the Brazilian warhorse path. Robbie Lawler actually got a lot of promotional love early, and then even coming back, even though I believe he might have been an underdog. To Josh Koscheck, but they gave him like a prominent spot to kick off on the main card when he comes back to the UFC at welterweight and whatnot. But he was definitely just and a lot due to his own just inconsistencies, self-admitted falling asleep at press conferences, not wanting to cut weight, and stuff like that. He just ended up on kind of the long road there, whereas Pantoja more the Brazilian warhorse angle. That's what I call it, anyways, yeah, just kind of like the Charles DuBronxes of the world and stuff like that, just all action. How can you not love these guys? Like, they've been fighting like this their entire career, folks. Like, they've made improvements and refinements that are worth acknowledging, but they've always been fun fighters. Like, go back to his Shuto Brazil days. Like, you just see an aggressive, fun fighter pressuring, and I believe the ring that back there in those days. So that back then, and I always get flashbacks to that Tyson Nam KO as well. Shuto Brazil, baby. But yeah, like it just being a big fan of this guy. Shout out to the MMA Analysis podcast again, especially my guy Wes Colvin. I know is another big Pantoja guy. Me and him big Pantoja fans from the jump. And believe me, it feels much better to bet with your heart. I would have done so easily in a heartbeat if that was my style, right? If that was my job. And pick Robbie Lawler, I would have felt much better about it. Believe me, folks. Very happy for you guys who cashed there. And I wasn't doing that here again when I my breakdown for this. I said that I actually came in leaning toward Moreno. with the thing, they're just like, man, they made Pantoja wait till he aged out, thinking about the bad optics of his cardio and this and that, which, by the way, everybody talking about his cardio, everybody talking about decision, maybe they should be at least, because not only few people picking the Pantoja, but how many people picked him by decision specifically? Called it. Not just control, because control doesn't score, but what he did with the control, the optics of it, going for things in conjunction with the more damaging shots, particularly early or on in the fight. That's what got the party started for Pantoja, and was able to keep the ball rolling. And I said, like a more aggressive Jose Aldo. Again, not an apples for apples comparison here, but as far as he's not like a slouch or something, like he just doesn't care, and like he doesn't train hard and has no idea of pacing, although he could be fighting smarter pace. He is just a ridiculously high-paced fighter, and but he needs his pockets to recoup, right? So it just creates bad optics, which is why he also has really bad round twos, even in fights that he wins, like this fight, or other fights against other good guys where he actually finishes them in round two, like Brandon Royval, right? So I called it. He decision, pockets to recoup, particularly round two, which was Moreno's most clearest round. No one was arguing that round, right? Definitely. So sorry, I got no one's gonna give you your flowers as I learn and continue to learn. You can't expect people to give you your flowers as I learn and continue to learn. And as I've needed to continue to learn, you gotta stop and smell your own flowers. God damn it! And I hope Pantoja is. I'm definitely going to do. So with my small bouquet, that is only there in thanks to him, and we should all smell our flowers no matter what they are, where they come from, man. And it was just beautiful to watch. And I'm a Brandon Moreno fan. I'm a Saif Saud fan. I'm a fan of his team. Man, I got love for Mexico. Man, it's nothing to do with that. It just seeing the guy who was just disrespected, given that long path. I talked about all these themes, and they came out, whether it's the technical analysis from the pacing, the result to the decision, to the personal touches like the Uber Eats and stuff like that, which I know, he's kind of come out and he doesn't want any, like, you could tell he just clearly doesn't want reprisal, and that opens just up a whole nother just sad conversation of not just the UFC, just kind of the system we all are kind of in, right? We have bosses, work under capitalism, all that fun stuff, right? These are just themes, You don't want to S where you eat, but at the same time, it's you gotta acknowledge that you deserve more, and I think we at the very least have to acknowledge that. And to see a guy, being relegated to the prelims with the other flyweights, kept on the sidelines. I know there was an injury on one of his parts when he finally did get his shot. I understand that. That was a legit reason for one of the things. But to see that guy finally get his day, it was just like, holy shit, man. And then just, the personal stuff, the finance. And he's just a family dude. Just like, he doesn't want to be rich and famous. He just wants, it seems like I'd be just content to pay his bills. And I totally appreciate and sentiment that. And then the dad stuff, like, holy crap, like, the father stuff and this and that. Like, man, this sport, whether it's the fighters or schlubs like me in the gym, or randos like you just enjoying the sport, right? Like, none of us are exempt from this, but there is a magnet to there's stereotypes like lower socioeconomic people who go to fighting, but like a lot of it I noticed a lot of broken families. And a lot of, especially with the men, which is of course an obvious kind of majority there. Bad relationships with the fajas, the father figures, and this and that. And man, I'm sure we all have our stories and things we've been through. I definitely have mine. And you see a guy like Pantoja just pouring his heart and soul out there to bear. As if he didn't do it enough through fighting, he did it in all forms. And how do you not love that, man? Of course, I scored it, and I hate that the scoring thing becomes a thing, but I scored it rounds 1, 3, and 5. I did a thread on that seemed to get some decent traction. I just felt a bit crazy, whether it's analysts or scoring people. I respect. Shout out to my guy Scott and, by the way, Dan Urban, Couchside Judges. if you're into the scoring stuff, that's the podcast so you guys should be listening to. But yeah, we're across the board, people I respect, seeing kind of like dismissive, a bit reductive on Pantoja striking early in round 5. And my guy Fenyo signed off on me, and some others did as well. But yeah, man, I don't know. I rewatched that round like 4 or 5 times actually, because I just felt crazy. Like, am I seeing something? And yeah, no, I just felt like he lands the more impactful shots in the first minute and 30. You got Brandon Moreno with a strong commentary push, having a good 45 seconds or so, and then he lands his best shots of the round. But again, that's the thing. It's like, especially with I want to say round 3 and round 5, or maybe it's round 4 and round 5. But here's the danger of not just being reductive, which is the danger of the way it's written as far as, or interpreted. Maybe not even so much the way it's written, but the way it's largely interpreted is a problem as far as immediate over cumulative, because people have that in their mind to just not acknowledge cumulative. If there's one immediate that outweighs it, it's like, well, if you're doing that, you got to be real sure that really impacted them, right? Like, were they knocked down? Were they visibly rocked? Like, yes, were they cut? Like, people cut easily. I said that in my breakdown of my analysis. Pantoja cuts easily. That's going to happen. He gets cut in all his fights. But was he really rocked, Did Brandon Moreno's shots in beginning of round 5 move him? Or was that Pantoja already circling and kind of moving with the shot? And he actually goes and wins the exchanges. That's another thing. It's like, okay, if you're not sure if he was hurt, if he wasn't rocked, if he wasn't wobbled, if he wasn't knocked down, if there's not immediately bruising with cuts, right? Cuts are still worth it, or they still score, obviously. Like the elbows Moreno hits in round, I think 3 it is, right? Like, those obviously still score. But I also say be careful about overvaluing that, I want to see, is Pantoja visibly backing off after that? He didn't. He keeps coming forward after these shots. In fact, he gets takedowns and then finishes the round strong. Either taking over the round in round 5 or in round 3, where he does get sloppy and he loses position, but lands the most damaging shots both he or Moreno could lay claim to in that entire round, with the up kick and 5 slicing elbows off the back to seal the deal in a round that you could have already argued that he was slightly up. Close and competitive it was, folks. I know I like to separate those words. I hate stop using the oxymoron. Love you guys, Couchside Judges. Stop saying close and competitive. Especially Scott, you're a word guy. You know better. It's an oxymoron. It's competitive. It's competitive but clear, not close but clear. Sorry, close but clear is an oxymoron. It's competitive but clear. But this fight was honestly close and competitive all the way through. So we can throw all those sayings and my weird pet peeves about it all out the window here, because it was a close and competitive fight all the way through. But again, not just the danger of being reductive scoring and you end up weighing something, your argument, you're hanging your hat on an argument with the air quote immediate strike, and it's like, okay, how sure are you? Did that hurt them, right? Because again, the only person to really back people up with strikes in those rounds, especially even the 5th round, was or 3rd round, I believe, was Pantoja, and those were body shots. Again, body shots not getting the love, right? Even though they're some of the hardest strikes in the round, seldom do you hear them cited in a lot of arguments. Actually got Moreno to physically check his body, slow his pace down, back up, and allow for more body shots immediately after. That tells me he was hurt, right? Not, oh, big punch to the head, but the guy keeps moving forward and then wins the next 3 exchanges. Oh, but he was cut. Audio listeners, I just did the Dan Tom jerk-off gif. So, you become dangerous in that area. And then again, these rounds in particular have a great argument as far as like, okay, it's why it's dangerous to hang your hat on just one, air quotes, immediate impactful shot is because, well, what happens immediately after these most immediately impactful shots that everybody's citing from Moreno in round 3 and 5? Pantoja either returns, hitting harder shots if we're talking about round 3, or takedowns if we're talking about both rounds, and or taking control and closing and finishing the round strong, trying to finish the fight in round 5, despite being told, which was very problematic, by the way, that his corner that he was up 3 rounds to 1, he still goes out there and goes for the finish. Is that not what we want? Is that not what criteria is supposed to score? Is that not what this fight is for? Round 5 Pantoja, 1, 3, and 5. And I will stand to that. I'll try to go through the rest of this a little bit faster schmaster, but you guys, I want to pay off some love to the chat real quick. Rio says in Truesdale, how good is Volkanovski? You and Ghost mentioned the southpaw body kick that Volk had trouble with Islam, and Volk came in with an answer to it. Yeah, I got to look closer as far as the exact tactics, but his closing off and closing the stance, stepping into those right hooks, I know was one of them that he's built off of his previous work. James Kendrick, what do you think of analysts giving unfair analysis towards fighters who have clearly improved? Seems insulting to the fighter, no? Yes, but you can't take that stuff personally because sometimes it's just like I can try and just be dead wrong on something because I'm me, of course. But no, we're human is more the thing if we're being honest with ourselves, right? And there's a lot of it that's just honestly, man. When you're paid to talk, you'll say dumb things. And honestly, there's just too much to keep track of. And Dunbar's number is a real thing. And the UFC shoving us this many fighters, even if you're like a show who like you're just gonna focus on like select fights or whatever. And I'm kind of evolving into that myself as much as I can, even though I kind of have to cover the majority of these cards for one reason or another, right? So I'm not hating, but I'm just saying that even if like you have an air quotes lower slate to carry, it's still too much MMA. Even if it's just UFC and you're picking your spots, it's still too much MMA. Like, that's the reason why I have to watch tape. It's not, I don't like to. I shouldn't need to. Sometimes I feel like I don't need to after I get done. But there's a lot of times, more often than not, more than I like to admit, where I'm like, crap, I forgot all about this. Which is part of me wants to try to keep better notes to see if that helps. But I don't know. Sometimes you just got to see things, right? Because you're looking for different things. It might be a different matchup this time I'm looking at. I am an older person who hopefully is more wiser and have learned some things. Maybe I pick up something different, right? So but it's tough to do that work. It burns you out. It causes things. It's tough. I can attest. So I'm not hating. I just suggest that if you see something, hear something suspect, instead of not saying you're doing that, James, or anybody here in the chat, but instead of getting mad or unsubscribing or dislike, whatever, just give a little bit of understanding their way. It's like, you know what, they probably just didn't have time to brush up, Ghost Phantom, I love Robbie Lawler. What a perfect way to end his career. I was tearing up when they showed his tribute reel. Yeah, I'm going to pick up, stop there, and I'll pick back up there because there's some Robbie Lawler stuff. We've got Dricus Duplessis, third Dricus Duplessis, baby. Robert the Reaper Whitaker. Boy, I got to tip my hat, though, to Dricus. I didn't go back to rewatch, but he fought much more disciplined, He still had jank that came out during the finishing sequence, but he also had beautiful body work that came out of that finishing sequence. You could tell he really did his homework as far as like seeing the lead hand, the southpaw counters, whether it was from Till early on or Cannonier in that round 3 off the lead hand with the right hook. Seeing that those lead hand shots, whether it was a jab, I think he actually ended up catching him with, or the right hook off that stance was going to be good. It looked like that, just like, who was it? Podcast I listened to. Someone said they went back to rewatch it, and it's like there's a lot more that early success than what you realize live, which I definitely can kind of see in retrospect, but I didn't go back to watch, so I'm not going to weigh in on that one. That was the thing, too. As far as this was a busy week, because I actually stopped to kind of enjoy, sink in, tweet about, make threads, rewatch. I never do that because there's too much MMA. I have to turn the page. So I actually was able to do that with this card, but with that fight I did not. Cope, Robert Whitaker, Cope. No, man, I gave plenty of credit to Duplessis and tipped my hat to him. I'm just glad that I saved my ass and didn't dump 8 units. And could you imagine? Because again, back to that thought I shared at the beginning of the card, instead of this amazing card, I get this dude who's I'm not a big fan of, obviously. His fan base is not a big fan of me, and they've obviously spent a lot of time trolling me, obviously. To lose that card and then, to be honest, I don't know. I didn't even really get shit for losing the pick, which is fine. I don't give a shit. It's fine. Whatever. Come at me for that. That's cool. Still winning night, saved the night. But, man, could you imagine, though? I I would have deserved the Duplessis army, the Third Reichuses to come after me. In that case, I'm just. Oof. Again, shout out to my guy Clint. Bullet dodged. Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner via split decision. Man, my first instinct was Turner via decision. And then I was like, Dan Hooker is super live here. I just didn't have the balls to pick him. They both were troublesome in body work. But Dan Hooker seemed to be less durable to it, even though Jalen Turner, not impervious durability. Easily arguably less durability to the head. But all things being equal, I took Jalen Turner, and then he misses weight for the first time, and he's already been subject to, even though when he makes weight, he is so big that his performances are often due to his cuts, and they kind of speak to his performances in wins and losses, for what it's worth. And that immediately got me scared off of anything for Turner. I did think it was the hot round. I already was invested on the round 2. Which again, if you looked at that, I was either going to get I think it was either going to pocket a unit if Jalen Turner won, or pocket over 3 units if Hooker wins in round 2, and they both almost finish each other. In fact, it was just one of those arguable saved by the bell, if there ever was one. The ref didn't even hear the bell, and it was already like motioning to wave the fight off. Like we were right there for that round 2. I'm not trying to be like, oh, the analysis, because my round 2 hot round analysis was terrible for the previous fight. That said, it was pretty on point for the rest of these, even if they didn't cash for whatever that's worth. I know. A lot of you guys are probably doing your own Dan Tom jerk-off GIF back to me, and that's fine. I deserve it. Bo Nickel defeated Val Woodburn via first-round TKO. Nice check right hook, baby. Southpaws never leave home without it. Let's go Bo Nickel. It's probably going to be Bo Nickel versus Dricus Duplessis for the title. We're going to be... we're going to have to be... I'm scared for Izzy, man. Be rooting for Izzy, but I'm going to be scared for Izzy too. I'm not going to lie, man. Can't let your personal bias get in the way of these things. And curious to see where the plus number goes on Dricus that's already out. We'll see if I end up on him. I'm not saying I'm full sell, but I'm just saying even if I pick Izzy, there ain't no way I'm playing him in that fight. I'll tell you that much. We could be in for the reign of Third Reichus, and the only one man will save us, and that is help me, Obi-Wan, red-haired Bo Nickel Kenobi, whatever. I don't know what I'm going with that. He does kind of look like a young Alec Guinness if Guinness was a ginger, right, and not a pedo. Dan, was he a pedo? Or am I just kind of make everybody a pedo? So maybe that's not true. Anyways, definitely not a pedo. Robbie Lawler defeated Nico Price via first round KO. My God, again, it couldn't have been happier to have been wrong. And again, back to my guy Ghost Fan. I'm talking about that tribute wheel. I want to give credit to the UFC. We talk about not paying credit to their history and this and that, and in their defense, it's very hard to do, and because of, again, the schedule, it's just too much. Just the way that you should kind of cut slack to analysts. Same goes for just anybody in this space, man, trying to keep up in this crazy space, like the UFC, not Dana White or the brass, obviously, but the people working in the UFC, man, like whether it's the commentators talking, or more important, the people behind the scenes that are busting their ass to give this entertainment that no matter how we feel, what proverbial side of whatever fucking culture war is a soup du jour this week, those people are working their ass off. They deserve the credit. And for them to actually pull their sleeves up in an already insane week, not as insane because they're not doing the 3 cards like they usually do, but still, the fact that they'll fly guys like Don Fry out, paying respects, and like those guys, Mark Coleman, those guys get jazzed, they get to kind of feel special again, as they fucking deserve to. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that in a negative, condescending way. I hope it didn't come off that way. To give those guys that gift is beautiful. To obviously the tribute reel. They even without playing it post, and whatever your feelings are of doing the dual screen, like were they trying to get Rabbit to cry, or whatever your opinions on that are aside, they played that same sizzle reel before, and it was just awesome. And you got to give them credit where it's due, just like the matchmakers for the cards like this when it's due. We'll rip them to pieces when it comes to the card we're going to break down here shortly. But you really got to give credit for that. Ghost Phantom adds, very rare for me to be emotional since MMA is such a silly, rinky-tink sport with silly nonsense surrounding it. Yeah, I was emotional and happy, and at that point I was absolutely winless for the night. I think I only had Nico Price in round 2 and a round robin. I stayed away from the tempting to parlay him, because you're like, oh, everyone's betting with their heart. This could be a sneaky spot as a bettor, right? Where those spots could be potential gold mines as bettors. Obviously, it wasn't because it was a minus 225 number, which is not sexy no matter who you're talking about, much less Nico Price. But you know what I mean. I guess glad I stayed away from that one too. Jimmy Kudo, speaking of Jack Della, I wish Josiah Hara well in his health career. Yeah, definitely. Brain stem clot in the serious, and I feel bad for making fun of him last week when they were booking the fight. Yeah, the guy actually, they booked a better guy here, and no disrespect to Harrell, who I hope is okay, man. That brain stuff is very serious, the clot stuff. That's what my mom had, almost killed her. And to be honest, shit's genetic, so I should be getting checked. Also, the scary part of it is not only is it genetic, not only can they disrupt by brain trauma, they also can form even if they're not genetic by brain trauma. So just the fact that I've had as many concussions and been doing some kind of combat sports and kicking and punching since 1992 on and off, yeah, there's probably a good chance there's some fucked up shit that, to be honest, got a little bit of that fighter I'll worry about later when I'm done competing, even though I'm not a competitor, I'm not an athlete, I suck, and I'm closer to 40 than I am 30, but yeah, it's real shit, man. Good, shout out to Regulation for when it actually does work. Eric McGracken tweeted that out. Marcus Mustard, Robbie's career is really impressive. 20 years, roughly, as a pro. A bit more. Yeah, man. Again, these long warhorse careers are insane. It's insane. I mean, Robbie fought in the Super Brawl eras. Last one of the guys to fight Pride. I mean, like, just like Yves Edwards I was talking about, Elite XC, Super Brawl, like, dude, it was insane. I mean, fought in my backyards of Hawaii and Las Vegas, Rain Lamina, the George O'Keefe of Internet Beef, the Jack Slack of the Human Backpack Attack, keeping it PG today for Dan. I appreciate you, Rain Lamina. Jin Karasu, what's going on, Jin? It's been a while. It has been a while. I love the community that you built here. Trying, man, and it wouldn't be one or any of one without you guys. So thank you guys for that. Don't give me the credit. Ghost Phantom, shout out to Volkanovski, inside kick. Switch stance to the right hook. Yeah, that's definitely a great tactic for him that he applied well. James Kendrick, non-leveraging shots scoring is Dan's biggest pet peeve. You know what it is. Yet people still argue it weirdly. Yeah, it is insane. We'll get to that shortly with that Southpaw report that I posted with this week with the Bueno Silva versus Fiorot, which I don't disagree with the decision, by the way, even though there are arguments. We talked to other educated analysts like my guy Fanyo. I'm not trying to argue the score or the winner, but it's much more closer than that score it shows. And the fact that Fiorot got a 10-8 and Bueno Silva didn't get a 10-8 in round 3 when she fought Morose and lost, it should have been a draw. Go back to that round. I mean, she fucked her up on all 3 levels. Really, like limping, hurt to the body multiple times, hurt to the head, cuts, bruises. I don't know what the fuck else do you want? Submission threats, it reminded me, it was much more stronger. At the time, it was probably a little more emotional, not as strong in the rewatch, but it reminded me Magny Gastelum back in the day, where one of the rounds where I was like, he got 2 knockdowns, 2 takedowns, pass to mount, back mount. What do you want to bring a fucking prison shank to get a 10-8 here? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, and then we got Jin Karasu, close but clear is a bad term. Thank you, Jin Karasu. What is the reasoning why? So I can brag to my friends and seem smart in front of them when talking MMA. I don't understand. It sounds. You know what it is? As a fan of alliteration, and this happens with a lot of writers, and I'm very guilty of it too. I'm not above this, folks. If it sounds good, you start saying things, or you do the ignorant guy thing. And I'm an ignorant guy, and I'm a stupid guy. So I'm not above when I'm complaining here. I'm just as willing to admit myself. But you will say words that don't even make sense. They just don't make sense. They just sound like they made sense. You never stop to look it up and properly put it into context. We've all probably done that if we want to be honest. I definitely have done that. So I think that's where it comes from. So cut us some slack. Cut everybody some slack. Rio Susan Truesdale says, what's up with the narratives that Joe Rogan keeps pushing during broadcasts? Like Yair is so technical. Volk beat Islam, steel cups, and his hands must be hurt. Again, Rogan has talked so much that he kind of just speaks in his just repeated terms. I mean that's why I stopped listening to his podcast. However thousand episodes ago. Like I think I right about when started getting to the 400s or so, I believe, and then I don't know, way before the Spotify days, so I don't know what's going on there anymore. Third Reich is Duplessis. Him and Adesanya face off with silly and cringe. Yeah, that was really cringe. That was very cringe. Did I have a note on that? I just I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Brain clots are scary stuff. You okay? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what's really going on in there? It could have a ticking time bomb. You never know. But yeah, I definitely should get checked out. And my ass still wants to compete because I'm stupid. Mark Fellows, my family jewels got caught in the blender this morning. Don't worry, just a scratch. I hope you're... Oh my God, Mark. I hope you're all right. All right, let's blow through the rest of these. Of course, Tetsuo Taira defeated Edgar Chavez. Unanimous decision. Not an impressive victory by Taira. He was saved by the bell, too. Speaking of saved by the bell, Jesus. The closest he did come to getting the finish was round 2, though, for whatever that's worth. I didn't play it. I don't think. Yeah, no. Denise Gomez versus Yasmin Jauregui. TKO. Oh, my goodness. Did I have her in the part? I forget. The one parlay I played was busted, so possibly. No. It was actually... I avoided this one somehow, even though I talked about it on the podcast, and then still got burnt by Duplessis. Yeah, this was over quick. Hopefully Jauregui can bounce back, and good for Denise Gomes, man. Alonzo Menafield looked great defeating Jimmy Crute via sub. I really appreciate Jimmy Crute. I felt for him. I don't want to take away from Alonzo Menafield's victory because he's showing some real improvements, and that deserves to be acknowledged. Excited for what's next for Menafield. I hope they give him a good matchup. But I'm also glad that Crute was, very vulnerable, and that's why it's a strength, man. You see fighters like Chris Curtis, shots to Chris Curtis, reciprocating it, saying like, man, I feel this, man. I feel this. Your identities to it, the frustration. I mean, even as silly as gambling on this stuff week to week or competing or doing whatever your job is, there's certain goals and stuff you don't meet. I mean, it's relatable in a lot of different ways, but I can only imagine how intense that feeling is when it's translated in the way of being a professional fighter and risking your body on the line. So wishing Crute nothing but the best mentally and physically. Victor Petrino defeated Marcin Prachniow via sub. Shout out again, Liam Picks Fights. What a great guest last week. Give him a follow at Liam Picks Fights. He gave this one out and said to look out for it. It was posted at big numbers for anybody that grabbed Petrino by sub. If you didn't like that big number, like I didn't, and you shouldn't have either. Cameron Simon defeated Terrence Mitchell very fast via first round TKO. Jesus Aguilar defeated Shannon Ross very fast via first round knockout. Again, that durability. And Estevan Ribovic defeated Kamuela Kirk via unanimous decision. Again, I ended up, just because it was such a fun and exciting card, and I ended up with only barely 5 units, which is about 2 units under my average, that I staked for each card. So I was like, fuck it, let's have fun. Let's not be so dependent on the last thing. That's why Impulse added the 5-legger at plus money for 1 unit, and added a 0.17 point U 3-round sprinkle on Ribovic. So I really only added a unit and 17 ducats, right? And still ended up roughly a unit under my average, which is pretty conservative, right? So no big miss there. And again, for what it's worth, Ribovic, that was the round. Even with the weight cut, it's just one of those things that just, some people, I'm defending people like Pantoja, right? But some people, it just doesn't matter what weight you go. And we've seen this before. I'm not picking on Kirk. It's just the way your pacing and your constitution is, right? Even if you're a lower weight class, which is still 155, even though he was moving up, he's still in a lighter weight division. Not flyweight with a longer gas tank, but yeah. John Atlas said, I rolled my eyes the whole time Liam was talking up DDP. Turns out he was onto something. Yeah, shout out to Liam, man. Again, he had some really sharp reads that aged very well. So really appreciate him coming on the show. James Kendrick says, can we talk about Gomes versus Jauregui for a second? Why did she stand so close so early? I remember you talking about how Whitaker establishes a large distance, so why Jauregui stand in boxing range? I'm not sure. I got to go back and rewatch that, to be honest, James, to give you a better answer. But we should point out that this could be a common thread, at least early, or maybe it's just she just gets aggressive and excited. She's very young, and she's been hurt, albeit not finished. She has been hurt, if we remember, even in her previous wins. So perhaps there is a common thread there. As far as tactics and range finding, I can't give you an exact answer, sadly, sir. But I appreciate it. All right, 54-54. We will go much shorter for the breakdown. It was a worthy recap, though. That was a card worth recapping in my defense this week, right, folks? Anyways, we're going to move it on to UFC Vegas 77, UFC Fight Night, Home versus Bueno Silva, UFC on ESPN 49. Again, talking about remembering fighters, it's just hard enough to remember these titles. Gonna have a sip of water. We got Holly Holm coming in at roughly minus 184, plus 142 the comeback on Maida Bueno Silva. She's looking like to get up to plus like 150 and 160 in houses. I'm looking at. I ended up grabbing Bueno Silva at plus 152. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I'm just thinking right now my breakdown's not even out as I'm recording this, I don't think, unless it dropped on Junkie. I know my co-main, which is now a feature bout, Jung Young Park versus Duraev, is up on Action Network as long as with my tracked plays for this one. But yeah, Bueno Silva. I ended up playing that, and I might as well just give you my plays right now, even though I'm like kind of spoiling it, going backwards here. I don't suggest you tail me. In general, I never put a gun in people's head. And this isn't one where I'm like, they got the dog wrong, trust me. This is more of a fade, although there are legit tactical themes and, again, more gas tank themes that I've been pretty good with my reads on that I'll get into here in a second, which is why I think the better plays here, which is more my main plays. I added the money line just because I thought it was going to go tighter. If you look at what they did for someone like Ariane Aldana, I was like, okay, well then maybe they'll go tighter for Bueno Silva, who's more dangerous in more different areas. But it's not. This is actually going to go wider, and regardless of line movement, and regardless of the fact that she's already a dog and a decent dog price, you will get a much better line and a potential hedge if you're on the Holly Holm parlay train, the Holly Holm decision train, if you wait, because Holly Holm's going to get off to a good start in this fight. Mayra Bueno Silva usually has pretty slow starts. She's plotty and slow-footed. She actually makes decent efforts to cut the cage, and doesn't follow as linear as a lot of fighters do in her defense. But she's still very plotty and slow-footed. It can be countered and timed coming forward. It's not the most difficult thing. She does deflect a lot of shots off of her high guard. But it's still very bad optics, right? So I think after round 1, round 2 even, you're going to get much better prices, so do not follow me there. I am just not a very good live bettor. I'm both going to say skill-wise, though maybe I am. It's one of those things, and I shouldn't say that because my dumb ass, again, another reason why I'm just not being self-deprecating, I didn't successfully order off of food apps until this year, which is not a good idea that I figured it out, by the way. But listen, and one of my other things that I've never been able to do is put a live bet in for whatever reason. The houses I play, maybe it's the houses I play, it always gets frozen when I'm trying to do it. I always get locked out. It sounds silly, and I don't try that often, but this is also why, because when I do, it never works for me. And or I'm also less frequently watching UFC live because I'm trying to live my own life, go out on nice dates and do things like that. I'd rather spend my nights doing stuff like that. So I'm not even around even if I wanted to. So a lot of reasons why I don't talk about the live betting or this or that. But this is one of those where that's what you would want to do for the Bueno Silva side. That said, if you are going to do anything pre-flop, this is what I did before I did the money line, which was kind of impulse. Because I do believe that Bueno Silva, like Pantoja, if it does get there, can win a decision for being the more damaging fighter. We saw Holm make more of an effort for that. She would grapple, control her wrists, and then if she couldn't get a takedown, she would actually break off with an elbow with Yana Santos and then break away. She wouldn't do anything extended, and she would probably eat a bunch of body knees in the process before that, which is bad because even though Yana Santos is a much, much bigger fighter Then Buena Silva, he used to be a flyweight, and even though it's not small, she's pretty much the same dimensions as Valentina Shevchenko. She's an inch taller, half an inch shorter of reach, inch shorter legs, so roughly evens out the same. Maybe not as thick. Well, she's still, I don't know, she's still thick and athletic, man. I don't know, like, so, it's not necessarily a size thing, right? And even Shevchenko was, like, shrugging, pushing off, getting the takedowns, again, shrugging off home when they fought, as well, for what it's worth. I know Shevchenko actually has judo and more discipline, Muay Thai, but whereas Bueno Silva is more offensive marauder. The wrestling defense aspect actually has been a problem for her. Montana De La Rosa, who is a smaller, always feels like a smaller flyweight. I don't even know if that's necessarily true. It's because I always thought she was a strawweight. She just wasn't. She's just not very physical. But in her defense, she is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, possibly a black belt by this point, but an experienced brown belt. She actually came up wrestling like Miesha Tate style, and I think was even like they say an All-American status in high school. Is that possible? Someone in wrestling can tell me. But the fact is, she was above average wrestler, and that's what saved her in that fight. But she should have lost. I mean, you want to talk about 10-8s and stuff. She got her ass beat. It was bad. She got her ass kicked. I know there's a point deduction, but Buena Silva still should have won that fight. Still obviously won that fight, and still beat her ass. So I don't know how much you can hold that one against her, but yes, she did in that fight, and then as well, especially in one of the rounds, is really bad optics where she gets flurried on and taken down in round 3. But she actually finishes strong besides that, which is the crazy part, right? Even in these defeats or whatever, air quotes defeats, air quotes draws. Like, again, she 10-8s Marina Moroz in a fight, right? And Marina Moroz already switched to American Top Team, had Pahumpa in her corner, who is now in Mayra Buena Silva's corner, right? Buena Silva was shootbox Diego Lima, so she had all the offense and the submissions. That was never a problem, but now she's at American Top Team. And so again, you maybe kind of cut her some slack for the defensive wrestling. Again, you look at De La Rosa, she's an actual wrestler. A lot of those were well timed when Buena Silva's throwing a kick. That's how a lot of these takedowns occur. A lot of these girls don't really get much off. Actually, she gets a decent off. De La Rosa does in one of the rounds. Clearly wins round 2, I believe, in my mind, I think. But or at least makes a case for it. But Buena Silva, again, she still finishes strong, right? She always has a bad round 2, very similar to Pantoja. She always has a bad round 2, but she finishes strong. Almost 10-8s Moroz. Even in the Manon Fiorot fight, like, she's landing quality body shots the whole time that are really bothering Fiorot, that the commentary isn't talking about for the first half, but the second half they really start giving Buena Silva credit because she starts coming on really strong in the second half. You look in those highlights, like, she finishes the round strong, hurts Fiorot, almost head kick finishes her at the end of that round, almost gets a head kick finish flurry too as well from the other side in round 3, where she actually finishes stronger, and Fiorot looks to be a bit winded because she really has to fight at that style, something to maybe look forward to, because Fiorot also is really huge. And again, a lot of those fights were at flyweight where Buena Silva was killing herself. So again, she wasn't training at American Top Team, didn't have the wrestling presence. Not to stereotype fighters from Brazil, because if anything, I give the positive stereotypes. But what's another one is that, from the Renan Barraus, Jose Aldo's is great and technical and around the game as some of them has been. You'd be surprised on how they all end up kind of finding out about diet and weight cut late into the game, right? Moving camps later into their careers. This is a very typical trend for a lot of Brazilians across the gamut. And Buena Silva's done that. She looks much better since going up to bantamweight. Now training with Pahumpa, again, a great coach. Talk about Diego Lima, who's underrated for Coach of the Year. I know my guy Aaron Bronstetter, shout out to him, the TSN MMA show, makes that case. I definitely don't hate it, but let's throw another Brazilian coach out there who deserves some love in the conversation at the very least. Pahumpa, Marcos D'Amata, the short, bearded Brazilian Robin Williams looking guy. I don't know why I call Brazilian Robin Williams looking guy, but he does great stuff there too. Got a champion with Pantoja. Pantoja was one of the main training partners with Buena Silva, of course. Buena Silva was a Charles Du Bronx, stan and training partner before. She's trying to, and she said before she wants to be the Pantoja, she wants to be Du Bronx, and she embodies that. She actually works the body really well. Really just like smart, like jabs to the body, even like, before going to ATT, like just the shootbox, credits shootbox Diego Lima, like she actually be doing jabs to the body, brutal knees to the body, good leg kicks that already go to the calves. That's obviously only going to get better working at American Top Team, where now she's working with Anderson DeFranca, who is Edson Barbosa, Marlon Moraes' coach. So again, she's working with like really good coaches for her style. As far as head kick timings and this and that, elbows, brutal in the clinch. Holmes obviously going to be a real big athlete and going to have the athletic size advantage. Obviously, going to be one of the biggest athletes in this and that she's faced. Obviously, but she was already calling out and preparing for the Misha Tates of the world and whatnot. And even though Holm and her team is finally prioritizing strikes more over control positions, realizing it's not 2009 where the late round takedown is just going to win you the fight. That being said, she's going to be eating a whole lot of body knees. And the one thing that goes when you're older, and even though someone like Holly, who, whether it's a hard work or just good genetics, air quotes, or whatever methods, she's in great shape. She can go 5 rounds, but even in that 3-round fight, granted, she was pushing a lot harder, and she knew that, and she was like, she actually, in her interviews, the way she's talking, I don't know, this just feels like a trap spot, like the UFC offered the fight, she wants to stay busy. Yeah, she's motivated because she's got the Amanda Nunes spot. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's a high-pressure spot, too. How ready was she for this fight? I know it's hard to tell from pictures, but she looks in great shape, I'm sure she's in fine shape, but she doesn't look quite as cut as the last fight, and one of the themes going into the last fight was like, oh, no, I was in bad shape on the Caitlin. I was injured or something, or whatever excuse she had, that kind of vague one, right, for that performance. And to her credit, even though it's a lesser skilled opponent, I know, well, Caitlin Vera, air quotes, lost to Yana Kunitskaya, like, I guess. That was just, I'm less upset about that fight as it went on rewatch, but it's like, you guys know how I feel, but that was kind of a weird, kind of a fluky fight, and Caitlin Vieira is kind of just a weird, can be inconsistent fighter, as we've seen too, right? So it's like, I don't know how much weight I really want to, put into that, but yeah, like, so she goes harder in the 3 rounds, and the way she was talking about it, she was like, oh, it was so nice to fight 3 rounds and not having to fight 5 rounds again, and now she's got another 5-round fight, and I know that she's going to be smarter on pace. So she's not, because if she looks that ragged by the end of round 3, that's dangerous. It's dangerous because I believe, like I did with Pantoja, who actually didn't have round 4 and 5 experience, that Bueno Silva can be a handful. Not only can she win like Pantoja, but I actually think that her style, she could be an unheralded fighter at 5 rounds. I didn't say that with Pantoja, even though I picked him and played him to win by decision. Actually, I couldn't play him to win by decision. I got limited. Not that it would have mattered, because it would have only been in the round robin. Nevertheless, point remains. I feel like her style could be unheralded. She actually did go 5 rounds and win in the regional scene, unlike Pantoja, who was scheduled 5 rounds. It's just the times it was scheduled, he finished it before, But again, you look at her, she has really bad round 2s, but she doesn't look like she gets tired. She finishes fights and has high energy. Even in fights she's clearly losing, 30-26 on one scorecard somehow to Fiorot. But like, yeah, that like, again, the way they're judging fights for damaging moments, she's always going to be attacking, whether she's in the clinch, that's her wheelhouse, whether she's in space, Holm can outpoint her and frustrate her there, but Bueno Silva does the one thing you want in a Holly Holm opponent to do, is a counter right hand. Doesn't matter for what stance, doesn't matter if we're talking about boxing, doesn't matter if we're talking about MMA, southpaw, orthodox, go through the list. It's the common kryptonite. Bueno Silva does that, but she also breaks down to the body and legs, which is great for elusive fighters. You saw that start to take a toll on Fiorot again toward the end of the fight, and would have done it more so, not just if there were 5 rounds, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but also woulda, coulda, shoulda if she actually stepped it up more and fought smart. She didn't fight too smart in that fight. Again, fighting much smarter now, even though it's a small sample size. We've only seen one fight under American Top Team when she fights Lena Landsberg. You see her actually using the body lock and not just selling out for damage and collar ties and offense. When the underhooks are there and obvious, she takes it on the bigger fighter to spin around position to get from negative to positive, to put herself from positive to even more positive by wrestling, going with the flow, floating, making sure she's staying on top, using her damage, because she'll do damage from the bottom too, just like Pantoja, but making sure she's like, her jiu-jitsu just seemed much more methodical. You could tell she was training with Bahumba. Really much more methodical, much more measured, and much more MMA friendly. Bahumba has been translating his game and coaching for MMA fighters, has MMA experience himself, and you really saw that in one camp. They sound like they're really connecting, and I don't know, man. She's already tied for Ronda Rousey for most arm bars. She could break the record. And even though Holm beat Rousey, and I know they're still replaying that, won't let us forget that, I actually think she's going to get submitted here, which is crazy. I mean, she's been submitted before by Miesha Tate in round 5 again, having to concentrate for that long. That's the thing, where fighting safe is only safe if you're not in there with like a heavyweight or a fighter who is dangerous and that has finishing potential. And even against a fighter like Miesha Tate later in her career, in a fight she was dominating, it just took that one break of concentration. And Holm even still talks about that in interviews like you're hearing her talk about this week. Like, you know, that's the thing she doesn't like about 5-round fights, you know. And she sounds all testy. And I love the comments. The comments like, oh, Holly marry me. Oh, she's so professional. Did you hear her compliment Nunes? Like, oh, come on, guys. Like, everybody is just like, save the chill. Like, oh, God, like, just relax. Okay, relax, everybody. Anyways, but yeah, like, and your bias here against Holly Holm's like, oh man, I picked Holly Holm a lot, pick her more often than not, picked her to get a finish in the Vieira fight, picked her last fight, picked her. I think I took to take a flyer in Aldana. Boy, my flyers in Aldana have not aged well. I love Aldana, but man, do not love my picks on Aldana. They've not aged well. But yeah, I just ultimately think again. Bueno Silva is too dangerous of a fighter. Even the old iteration is maybe at this stage of the career too dangerous of a fighter. If Holly Holm can't put her away, I think she's going to get hurt at some point and be run ragged. I think she's going to wrestle herself into a submission, get hurt, and then wrestle herself into a submission, wrestle herself tired. And Bueno Silva is going to keep that pace, and that small cage is not going to allow for a lot of disciplined fight, even if Holly Holm can still have that for 5 rounds. And the judges, and we're assuming the judges will reward that, not the more impactful shots, which I get. They love them some Holly Holm, and body shots and counters and leg kicks don't necessarily get the lion's share of the love, which is more than fair. Excuse me, way to characterize it. So, basically, before I got lost on the money line talk, my first play was Shitara inside the distance, plus 250. It was only plus 275 by sub, which was a crappy number. I didn't like that. Maybe I throw that in a round robin. I'm guessing with the stuff that I'll probably end up in my round robin. Maybe I get limited, so I have to just do Shitara money line since she's the dog. But as far as the play goes, I put a half unit on Shitara inside the distance at plus 250 for over a unit return there. And I'm going to be playing rounds 1, 2, 3. What the fuck is that? No, 3, 4, and 5. Rounds 3, 4, and 5. I'm waiting for them to drop on BetMGM so I can get some better numbers on it. I'm not liking what's posted right now. But I'm going to be doing the not point 33, but I'm going to be doing point 17. If I make it down to the book and I'm feeling frisky, maybe I'll just throw a just under a hundo down and spread out a just under a hundo across 3 rounds, rounds 3, 4, and 5, because they'll just be insane odds, 0.33 U's a piece, right? But for the what's going on the record books for this podcast, I'll probably just be doing 0.17 U's to get those numbers. I'm going to be looking to try to get, hopefully, plus 1,000s, plus 14s, plus 18s, or something like that is what I'm going to be guessing. We'll see what I can get. But if you do those 3 rounds at plus 0.27, at 0.117 U a piece on those 3 rounds, just a half unit exposure for the inside the distance, you're looking at just over a unit exposure on Mayra Bueno Silva that can pay out big, right? Just so long as she gets the finish. But again, I still think she can get the decision, and if the line is going to continue to go up, I don't know. I took an impulsive unit thing, money line thing, so now I'm just over 2 units. Do not want to expose any more than that. I'm not going to recommend you play the money line, even if you like the Bueno Silva side like me. You don't have to. You're an adult. Make your own decisions. Just telling you what I like and what I'm on. Being full disclosure on that. I suggest you just wait live to bet Bueno Silva or to potentially hedge out of your home. So that is definitely going to be the longest breakdown of this card. I'll get to you guys here since that'll be the main event, and then I'll save the rest for after the chat. Da-da-da-da. Definitely worth recapping, Dan. You can rush this next card. It's not good. Yeah, I'll try to rush the rest of it for sure. Rio says in Truesdale. Rio says in Truesdale says, or that was Jim Carrassi. Rio says in Truesdale says, our worst nightmare has come to fruition, Dan. Another Holly Holm main event that we have to pretend to care about. More importantly, how's your training going? I hope really well. I'm still reconfiguring training. Again, family amongst a bunch of this work changes to personal changes. Personal side family moved back to Hawaii there, which is good, which is great. It just it was helpful. I'm not gonna lie, having old grandma come over and watch the dogs, so I could go train. And they've been doing much better though. We've got them enrolled in the daycare, and I'm hopefully gonna be starting with finally some small trips and just something I should have done a long time ago. And then going to get gas, going to the grocery stores, and the old man's fine. He's super well trained. It's just the younger one that's coming along slow. She's fucking giant, so. I don't mind at this point if the house gets torn up a bit, as long as they don't tear each other up. That's my only worry. They've been good, knock on wood there. But yeah, just trying to get her good enough to be on training sessions. Otherwise, I'm kind of relegated to the week and doing a lot of work in my home gym. It's been a project getting some stuff hung up on there. Hopefully more hung this weekend. Didn't need to waste your guys' time on that, but I appreciate you asking. Marcus Mustard Gomes is ascending. Rios is in Truesdale. Tag down one of Jack Slack's retweets where Ghost shows the open side kick catch. Should wrestle boxers learn that catch where you can take it and scoop the underarm instead of dipping? Yeah, it's a fantastic move. I love it. Ghost Phantom, how weird is it that Holm actually has a good clinch entries and clinch but cannot work knees and elbows offensively from there? Yeah, aside from that like one elbow tool that she went to over and over again, yeah, still not good. She's going to get knee to the body. But again, both body work and then knees to the body when your back's to the cage are actually super leveraging, and they actually hurt a lot because the fighter is pushing into them often, so you often even get more leverage and not risk losing position because the fighter is actually just running into the knees. But the Gen Pop, the judges alike, don't seem to credit these fucking strikes, and they changed the course of fights. It's insane. It had Izzy backing up, and in that second fight with their first UFC fight with Boatan. James Kendrick, the comments under Tate and Holm interviews are thirstier than the Sahara Desert. Yeah, don't worry, Dan. We aren't simps unless it's for Zhang Weilei. Totally fine here. Totally fine. Last one, we'll move on. Jin Karasu, maybe it's rude for me to ask, but how much is in your bankroll? Like, what is 3 units for you? 1 unit, easy question to answer. Basically, I keep it simple. Everybody's different. Unit is the kind of measuring stick to show confidence, measuring of arbitrary amount. My amount, though, matches kind of the general amount. 1 unit, $100. Big ballers out there may do $1,000 a unit. More normal folks, which is how I suggest you do it, and how I've done it for the majority of my career, to be honest. It's like roughly like $20, or maybe you cut it in half, you go $50, and you just do the 1/2 system, right? 1 unit means 50. So on and so forth, and you do that math there. It's whatever you want to set, but full disclosure, yeah, mine is $100 for 1 unit. So if I go 0.33, a half unit, if I spit 1.5 unit, they're very easy for you to track. All right, pushing on, new main event, Jack Della Maddalena, minus 600. Hello, Basil. Austin. Dan, really? Come on. Austin. How mad are you, by the way, English people, that is your, maybe not, maybe it's spot on, you guys are proud, but that some Canadian guy is for us Americans, introduced us and is our definition of all English humor across the board is Austin Powers. How annoying was that shit? Maybe not at all. I don't know. You tell me, friends from across the pond. This guy though, Basil Hafez, he trained, I don't know where he trained before, Philly, but he moved over to Factory X and has looked like he's really started to refine his game. This guy actually looks like he's going to win some fights. He's actually going to be pretty good. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He actually, has matches with the guys like Gordon Ryan, where I think he lost like 3-2 on points or some shit. I can't remember under what rule set or what it was. But the point is, the dude is a legit grappler. That being said, we've seen Jack Della Maddalena deal with legit grapplers and wrestlers. He's got good enough anti-grappling and scrambling to where it's not too much of a worry. And, even though I'm not going to pick this guy, but even though he's livelier than some might imagine if you're just writing him off as a short notice replacement, this guy's an actual 170 pounder. He's not some guy coming in off weight. He is actually has a decent skill set, decent build, athletic. It looks like a brick shit house. Look at this brick shit house. I think you should leave. Look at this brick shit house. Like I kept thinking of that skit looking at this guy. And the problem is he does seem a bit too wild to where he's not dominating guys like he probably should be for his grappling credentials, especially the level of guys. Some of the guys, and I don't want to judge because we haven't been able to see a lot of these guys that he's fought flesh out, to be fair. But you also would like to hope that he would dominate them a little more as a competition, higher level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. That being said, it looks like he's focused a lot on his striking, likes to switch stances a lot like Jack Della Maddalena, and he used to be getting, with his sloppier striking and being more aggressive, like I said, with the grappling, that would translate with his striking. It would get him countered a lot. Even though he was really durable and just being like these fun back and forth fights, he didn't look like he's like getting rocked like to where it's like a serious problem. That being said, no one should be surprised if he gets, finished or rocked here. But he does go through a lot of the same counter hooks that Jack Della Maddalena likes, especially when shifting the southpaw, which is interesting. You hook with a hooker, it's going to be a bad idea, and that would be a way to really get a guy drastically hurt, even more durable guy, right? Those hooking with each other kind of exchanges. That's going to be something definitely to watch out here for, both with the pressuring, countering, and then the potential level changing coming in and out of the clinches and off the breaks that I see. Basil, his style. It's gonna be in your guys' fucking head now. Austin, hello, Austin. His style creates. That being said, like this guy's gonna win some fights, and with the whole writing people off, this and that, I know Dan's being cheeky. Dan's gonna be contrarian. I wasn't planning on to being. This is no intro. Thank God. Shout out to my guy Dan Stubb, my editor-in-chief there at Action Network. Because I was like, my sleep schedule's all fucked up. Pulled like an all-nighter last night to finish my deadline on the co-main, which was supposed to be Jong Young Park. And there I have, and I wake up like, we decided to shift it because Walt Harris and Carbo Parisian is off the card. Shout out to love Josh Parisian, Carbo Parisian, love Walt Harris. But still, you know what I'm saying? Even when they're off the fucking card, these lower-level heavyweight fights on Fight Night main cards are like still the bane of my existence. But again, this is so priced out and not really sexy that, Action didn't want to write up on it anyways. However, the more I looked into this fight, what did the over open at? Plus 160. It's still sitting at 160. I'm looking at that over. I may throw that in a round robin if I don't play it straight up. You're going to be sweating balls. But, and what is Jack Della Maddalena by decision? Because this guy's durable. He hasn't been finished yet. And, I don't know, man. That is kind of the cheeky plays I'm looking at. I don't think I'll get that cheeky to go Jack Della by decision, but I think we could have one of those fights that's, again, the competitive word's dangerous because everybody says close but clear, but this could be a one of those fights that's a competitive but clear fight where you're like, like an Arman Sarukian, Islam Makhachev, but maybe you level those down a bit on both sides of the level. It's not an apple for apples comparison. Even though I'm a big believer in Jack Della's ceiling. Obviously, Islam has always had a very big high ceiling projection and continues to kind of fulfill it. And Sarukian, so forth as well. I'm not saying, and I was one to say keep an eye out for Sarukian, folks, when he was stepping onto the scene. I was that guy. I'm not saying that for Basil, but I am saying as far as like, wow, this guy's actually better than the original matchup they had. Again, no offense to that guy. Wish him the best. So I'm actually going to be looking at the over here, but I think it's going to be Jack Della either round 2 or Jack Della decision. I can't see which one I'll end up on. Check me on my picks and plays on Fight Day and Dan Tom MMA, where of course I will post, which you can find at MMAJunkie.com as always on Fight Day, my quick picks and prognostications. We'll go to the next fight here, which is, I gotta look now. It's the fucking adjusted order. The Ottoman Empire, Ottoman Azatar, minus 105, money coming on him. Francisco Prado, minus 115. Heavy puncher, dude with some weird ties. He'll put the gas on you, both literally and otherwise. Azatar. So I could see why money would come in on him against the Brazilian doppelganger of Drew Dober, Francisco Prado. I still got to rewatch both their last fights to refresh myself on this one. I will obviously watch it because I have to write it up. So again, check me on Quick Picks and Prognostications. This just was one of the few fights a couple fights that I didn't get to on the main card. And I feel less bad about it because, again, it's a competitive fight. There's not sexy numbers on either side. I don't know if this is a fight that you want to rush out and be confident or should be confident to be going to the betting window, even in the first place on. So don't feel that bad showing up too empty-handed. We'll see where I don't even want to say which side I'm leaning because there is no lean, to be honest. Again, it's just like a pick 'em fight. It's probably the line is getting bet down to where it should be, probably. We'll just say that. Nazim Sejikov, minus 140 versus Terrence McKinney, plus 115. I actually did tape on this one, as you guys know. Actually brought the Southpaw Report back with video in tow and some comedic video in tow. So make sure to give those things some shares and some love. I think I might have finished it, though, because I don't think there's any more Southpaws. We'll see. But yeah, this is a Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup. Sejikov, 0-0, hasn't faced any. But Terrence McKinney is 0-1 facing Drew Dober. It is deceptive, though. As I posted, Eric Gonzalez actually lights him up from Southpaw for like the one time that he switches there in their very short fight, which was interesting. Sean Woodson almost takes his head off with a cross and then finishes him off with a switch knee, which is, knees are the common culprit, but so are left hands. Because, of course, Drew Dober hits some left hands before hitting his knee from the Southpaw stance and finishing him. Evan Elder, who's on this card, switches stances a lot. He did have some success with the left hand because, again, whether you're a, air quotes, good Southpaw, experienced Southpaw or not, it's always an awkward lane. It feels so silly. Like, there's something about it. Only, like, Southpaws really understand this when you face another Southpaw where, like, there is no shot that's both more easier to land in that matchup, even if you're facing another good Southpaw or a better Southpaw than you even. But also a shot that's more scarier to land because you just feel like you're exposing yourself. Because you're not used to you're the check right hooker. You're not used to dipping into check right hook zone. And that's the left cross, baby. That's the left cross. So Evan Elder had some success when he threw those, but I would say Elder probably had more success out of his orthodox stance. Now that could be due to the fact that Evan Elder is probably an orthodox fighter who learned to switch stances, so maybe he's better from orthodox. Who knows? But it is interesting to watch out for because both these guys have big left hands. They both also have deceptively clean up hitting right hooks. However, Sejikov, whether it's with kicks or knees, he does go to the head and body, and again, knees and left hands being the common culprit. Sejikov gives good defense and elbows that could also tax McKinney if he's selling out for these takedowns. However, if McKinney is able to get a takedown, I wouldn't be surprised for him to get a maybe backpack Nazim in round one, because Nazim, even though he's got good defense and instincts, he will forget about his wizards from time to time, and Turtle, even though he does try to consciously use the fence like a cheese grater to his back to kind of scrape off anybody straggling it to attach to his back. He does play it fast and loose there, even though he has the right ideas, as he should. I mean, he's in a camp with Marab and Aljo, right? Even though he didn't necessarily come up through that camp, he was a later transfer. We'll see if he's cleaned up in that department. That being said, even if he does get his back taken, I think he can survive. And maybe that'll actually be good because maybe that'll wear out McKinney's legs and just overall energy, right? McKinney, though, he felt live for me going into this one. Feels even liver after hearing his interview with... you ruining my backdrop here, Big Stinkum? Yeah, it feels even livelier with Big Stinkum over here. Brownie. Big Stink Browns. Oh, I don't know how we did on the dogs last week. I think she came by for Pantoja. Yeah, you big stink. But yeah, McKinney feels extra live after listening to that TSN interview. Shouts to the TSN MMA show, my guy Aaron Bronstetter, where McKinney was talking about switching over to working with both, I believe, the Main Street or 4 Ounce Fight Club, whatever the Derek Lewis, Kevin Holland camp is, but also with Kevin Holland's jiu-jitsu instructor, of course, former middleweight title challenger Travis Luter. And in all those departments, that sounds great, trying to work on not being countered, cleaned up. I'm rooting for Terrence McKinney in this spot. He feels live. It feels like it's dog or pass. That being said, I still ended up picking Nazim just from just his style. Just feels like maybe it's a biased southpaw styling. He's also a round 3 guy. I don't think we're going to make it to round 3 here, folks. But Nazim gets a lot of round 3 finishes. He's acknowledged as much so. So he's a guy that I'm going to be looking to put round 3 sprinkles on going forward. So hopefully he wins because of that. But I'm also a big Terrence McKinney fan, man. And I feel like he could use the win arguably more than Nazim at this point of his career. So, man, my heart's also with McKinney. This feels like a dog or pass. So my heart's with you, too, I guess, if you're on the dog. But my pick is Nazim here. I'll probably take him by round 1 or round 2, probably round 2 finish. Body shot. Next fight. Let's see here. Here we go. This is I did tape on. It's supposed to be the co-main event. Now feature that is Jong Young Park minus 160. Albert Duraev plus 130. Money coming in on Park. I thought it would go the other way because Duraev is Russian. He seems like kind of guy with a win here that the UFC would want to promote. Even though Jung deserves a co-main event at this spot, he deserves ranked. And even if they're going to do one of those stupid middleweight, matchups that out of nowhere, it's like, put a guy like Jung Young Park in there then, folks. If he wins this fight, he definitely deserves it. He definitely already deserves the goddamn co-main event, which they probably only initially gave because of Duraev, who trains out of my backyard. I don't dislike the guy or anything, but let's just be honest. I don't know. Again, UFC not exactly trying to promote Asians, even when they do Asian stuff. Not exactly the best at promoting it. But yeah, I ended up liking Jong Young Park here, even though I don't necessarily like the price. That being said, I was able to find him at minus 148. You know me, I don't play chalk over minus 1.5 units. Was reminded that with the bullet dodge with Whitaker. But at minus 148, it's still not a great price. It's still exactly 10 cents over this opener, which was minus 138. But considering we're seeing minus 166s to minus 160s out there, that's not too bad. It's also hard to pick a route. I mean, Jong Young Park is just an all-around consistent MMA fighter. Maybe he's inconsistent as far as the results and sometimes or whatever. Like, he got wild against RoboCop, and you could say he got a little too conservative against Eric Anders, although he felt like he clearly won that fight. If you go and watch it, he hits a lot of counter hooks that actually had Anders rocked. Something to look forward to here, considering that counter hooks from both stances cannot seem to miss on Albert Duraev. But again, I'm not trying to pick on commentary. Again, not trying to go back on my words. I'm trying to cut these people some slack. But again, surprise, surprise, folks. Wait, the guy who countered and worked the body was underrated and not properly scored, not properly commentated, not properly talked about in Gentleman Pop and all around? Again? Fucking course it was. Fucking course it was. Yeah, let's award the fight to the guy who was pushing into the fence. Who, surprise, surprise, not picking on Anders, but he pushed into the fence. Like, what are we doing here, folks? The fuck are we doing here? Sorry, effective striking. Anyways, yeah, there certainly wasn't effective grappling going on in that fight. But anyways, Jong Young Park, I know, and then they reward him with, like, I was like, were these last-minute replacements? I'm like, oh, these were just stupid matchups again, not caring about just whatever, throwing fucking darts, their matchmaking in general, Jong Young Park's career, Asian fighters, whatever. It checks all the boxes of bullshit there. It's shit, and this guy deserves better, so hopefully he puts on a good show here. I think he's going to bring the pace. I know Duraev was saying he was kind of going with a stereotype, going, oh, this guy's... Everybody underestimates this guy. Again, I know he's not the biggest guy on the roster, and again, there's always that Asian factor, right? We get called unassuming, where, black athletes get called explosive. Why don't we call the black guys unassuming? Why do they have to be explosive and dangerous? Why can't they, I think it would do both of our races some positive balancing out of the stereotypical racism if we spread the level a little bit. Not that Jong Young Park is an explosive guy, though. Some of his boxing did look that way on the regionals, and I'll be curious. He really tries to get back to it. It just, the wrestling and the submissions and the well-rounded mixing things up seems to be just too much of a palpable pathway for the guy there. So hard to predict his methods, but Duraev does seem to kind of, tire out and fall apart. I don't know how he... I wasn't paying attention because I just cashed, I was just drunk with a big beer, just cashed a big ticket on Pineda round 2, just cashed a big plus 700 club submission, not from Mr. Turner, but from Nate Landwehr over Lingo, who we'll talk about, hanging out with my guy Lance Fisher from the MMA Analysis podcast. Again, cashing big tickets with actual MMA gamblers from actual MMA Twitter on my record that I'm not even tracking, which I would be up on this year, but let's forget about that, haters who have been awfully quiet as I am now. Technically, I don't count last week or the week before last week that I took off the Strickland Abus Magomedov card. First time this year, 3 in a row. Let's see if we can. I'm not trying to jinx it or whatever, but we're only a few ducats short of being in the black. Not that even if I was in the black now, I'd be comfortable because a lot can happen. Your luck can change that fast, but to the point. Anyways, I think Park finishes in round 3 here. I'm waiting for a better number. There's a real shit number right now at BOL. I'm waiting for BetMGM to release their number. I'm probably going to do a Scottie Pippen one because I'm just going to do that round prop there. So I'll be doing Turtle pre-flop. But this is another great live betting spot that's quietly a live betting spot because Duraev is balls to the wall in general. And it's like, do we trust him to get through his wrestling? Do we trust him to get smart? I don't know about the wrestling part, but I wouldn't really trust him to get smart with it because he's trying to come out here, and again, he's already sounds like he's underestimating Park like everybody does. The unassuming, going with the stereotype of his boring fights and not like realizing what he's been doing on the prelims. And then he's talking about wanting a statement, like he's jealous of Abus Magomedov. He's like, I want it, I deserve it. Again, because he even think I'm not just saying like, oh, the UFC probably wants to promote him. Like, no, he thinks so too. He's been under that impression with his management, the hype that he came in with, the route that he had to come in with through the Contender Series. It's like, okay, I shouldn't have to. I'm more experienced than this. I've fought M1, ACB, but at the same time, okay, let me at least get the promotional love that Dana White shows anytime someone through the Contender Series. Even if he doesn't sign the guy, it's funny. He'll still brag and be like, now you know, or whatever he does, those tweets, like, after they win, like, oh, of course, after the fact. So I guess he's expecting that, too. So he seems pissed off. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I think that's actually hurts a guy like him, who's been getting tested and has always had a suspect chin since his early days. Yeah, man, I think Jong Young Park can hurt him, finish him, and if he does, and if it goes to the decision, as long as he's not getting completely gypped on counters and body work, he should be able to win a decision. A clear one, and I say a clear, but which means he'll probably end up getting a split because again he counters and works the body if it goes that long. I'll probably put Jong Young Park round 3 in a round robin as well. But no round 3 officially on the boards yet, but I do have my Iron Turtle play logged in when I got that number, the minus 148, 1.5 units to win 1 unit return. So I got like dog hair like floating like all around it. It's like, ugh. Should I pet my dog and then touch my face? I'm like, oh. Ugh. But all right, next fight we'll go through Norma Beaumont. Big Norm, minus 148, plus 116 comeback on Chelsea Handler Chandler. I haven't take this fight. We'll probably barely take this fight. I don't know. Maybe watch them. Maybe just their last fight each, I guess. I don't know why we're having 145 women's. It was only to boost Amanda Nunes' status as a double champ so that Dana, again, my theory that I kind of had a suspect, his seed has really grown. It really makes sense in retrospect because his whole, I want to have the best woman in the world, couldn't get Rousey to come back. Had the bad fallouts and the bad PR with Cyborg, right? Both before, after, during, and that was his way to make it to do that. I'm not trying to take away from Nunes, who is a bantamweight goat in her own right. Does not take away anything she's done at bantamweight, which she absolutely deserves all the credit in the world for. Just saying the division is a kind of a joke, and I'm not trying to shit on these women or other women with their martial arts journeys. I want everybody to have a place to fight. But again, folks, when we're talking about card structure, why the fuck is this on the main card? I'm sorry. I want your girls to have your dreams. I want you to have a place to fight. I'm not going to shit on your comments. I'm not going to say shut the division down. I won't say any of that. But why the fuck is this on the main card? What the fuck are we doing here? Women's 145, Carbo, bigger is better. America, we're not big, we're football sports. It's like that whole fucking culture that I clearly just do not get, clearly not a part of. I don't know. I don't fucking get it. Give me Big Norma Dumont. All right, and then we've got fucking, what is this fight card opening up with? Nazim, I already did the Sadikov thing. Okay, cool. All right. Tucker Lutz. Sorry, why I gotta say his name like that? Damn, we say like he's fucking sex offender. Tucker Lutz plus 134, minus 172. Melsik Bagdasaryan. Melsik, a bit surprising. The last time out. By the way, Tucker Lutz, the other southpaw on here. Tucker Lutz has no experience against UFC level southpaws. I gotta go back maybe and watch that Pineda fight. I know Pineda rocked him, but I don't know if it was from a switch stance, which Pineda doesn't really do that much, so maybe it wasn't. Of course, Melsik lost to Josh Kulabau. I got to go back and rewatch that fight. I want to say, was Melsik doing better than I gave him credit for or thought he might do? I don't know, man. I'm leaning toward Melsick, but this is not a fight I want to pick or play. Good on Tucker Lutz if he can win. But yeah, I will stay away from this. Stay away from this fight. Estela Nunes plus 165, Victoria Dudikova minus 210. Very wide line, and Nunes seems like she's due. She looks like in great shape. She's training at American Top Team. But hasn't that always been the case with her? And she's looked great, and she comes out looking like she starts great. And then, maybe you'll get an opportunity to hedge out of your Nunes plays if you're taking it. And if you want a better shot on Dudikova. I got to go back and refresh, but I'm actually looking at Dudikova inside the distance here. Because she's the grappler, it's the small cage. And I know her fight in the Contender Series wasn't great, but what you guys need to remember is she had an injury and some really bad circumstances on that fight. Like, terrible. And I ended up giving her a B+, even though it didn't look like a B+ performance. But it was with the context that she was pushing through these injuries and stuff pre-fight and these other issues she was having, right? That affected, like, I think her weight cut and stuff. Now, she is training, I don't know her, so I don't know if there's a bias, but she is training in my backyard Extreme Couture here. For what that's worth. But she looks in much better shape. She looks much better prepared. Has had a whole year off. Got to get her injuries addressed. And Estela Nunes is young too, so this goes for her as well, to be fair, as far as that improvement, right? Like, how are they going to improve? Because I believe they're both in their 20s, if I am correct here. Victoria, 24, yeah. And then Estela Nunes, 30, actually. She's a little older, quietly. Wow. She's lost lots of rear naked choke. Of course, Victoria Dudikova has had a lot of rear naked chokes. Now she's going to be healthier. Back in the apex, so maybe not the UFC jitters of the big crowd, and a cage that fits her fight style. So, yeah, I don't know if she'll be in a round robin, or maybe I'll put like a half unit just for funsies, like on inside the distance, so I don't have to choose Parker in case she does get a TKO. Because Nunes, again, even though she's explosive, doesn't mean she can't get smacked and kind of rocked and stuff too. Hurt, finished by TKO, right? So there's that. Nothing you want to run to the... I'm rushing to play at the window, obviously, but it just seems like it could be a fairly clear read. I'm going to go do the work to make sure, though, in case I need another option to play here. Austin Lingo plus 170. Miquezel Costa, apologies on the name, minus 210. I'm going to go with Costa for his more diverse game, but this feels like a dogger pass spot, and definitely heart with Lingo and his team. Coach Saif Saud seems like a guy who really, kind of goes out there and overachieves, has a lot of the staples of that gym. Really exciting fighter, a guy that'll be in kind of fight of the night fights, real action fighter. But the diversity, gas tank, I don't know if he's going to be able to have the grappling game to take advantage of him like a guy, not just skill-wise, but also one weight class up, and Moises was able to do to him last time out. So I'll go with Costa. But again, I didn't research this fight. Even if I did, this is not a fight that I feel like, in fairness, I don't think I would want to... I feel like it'd be fairly safe to say that I would still feel the same way even if I did research it and want to stay the way, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. People aren't staying away from Evan Elder, who's up to minus 300. Genaro Valdez, plus 230. Got to refresh myself on Valdez. I did like what I see from Elder. I like his story. He is steadily improving. I do agree with him being favored to win. He will be my pick here, but minus 300, no thank you. And I admittedly did not do the tape study to give you an angle on how to approach this one. So apologies, but check me for my final pick and perhaps any nuggets on fight day at Dan Tom MMA. I haven't gone to check out, which I want to, by the way. I really want to check out this guy, as at Maxim minus 400. Of course, Tyson Nam plus 300. You guys know me, man. Even if Maxim is the pick and deserves to be favored here, my bias is still going to be toward Tyson Nam here. I know he's older for flyweight. He's getting rocked and put out now, perhaps faster and more abruptly than you'd like to see. Definitely a possibility of many ways to lose here, perhaps. But there is one way for Nam to win, and that is by KO. And at plus 600, I mean, I may just take a stab on that at a half unit anyways. It's probably definitely going to be in a round robin, just because I always put Nam by KO in my round robins. It's always a nice hit when it hits. It's a great way to play him. And we're going to need some underdogs, because so far I have only picked one, Bueno Silva. So yeah, Give me Tyson Nam. Alexander Munoz is back minus 185 versus Carl Deaton plus 150. I'll go Munoz, but I haven't seen him in a while. Small cage for wrestling. Let's see if his boxing improvements are there. I believe this is the good-looking, marketable kid there from Team Alpha Male, Carl Deaton. Kind of a regional wrecking ball. I believe he might have a victory over my guy Justin James, if I'm thinking of the same guy, but keep in mind, Justin James just got his neck surgery. He's been needing since deep into the UFC, by the way. Wasn't able to get it out of there. He was, not trying to make excuses or put his stuff on the spot, but the guy was in bad shape. He's definitely in bad shape for that. Probably shouldn't have been fighting that fight. So, for whatever it's worth, if I'm thinking of the same guy, don't weigh that victory over Justin James too hard. That's not just me standing for my guy there. So I'll probably take Alexander Munoz. Not a fight I care to play anyways. Same with this fight. Maybe I'll pick Ashley Evans Smith at plus 185 because she's the WMMA dog over Aileen Perez minus 225. We need some more dogs. But if you see me picking Ashley Evans Smith, know that I probably didn't do tape study on this, especially if you see me picking her and not playing her despite picking a plus 185 dog. So there is that. All right, how do we do on time? We'll get to the chat and we'll get out of here. 145. That's still kind of a long episode. Sorry about that, folks. Most of it was, to be fair, the recap was longer than the breakdown, probably. Actually, they're probably both same. Okay, I'm going to clean up the chat before we get out of here, and then we'll get Rain Lamina. I love Jack Della Maddalena and his body work. I hate that he's being paid 10 and 10. Oh, God, I hope he's not. Is he? God damn. Please don't tell me he's still in that contract. Shitara has her work cut out for her, but the hungrier dog runs the fastest. Yeah, absolutely. I like her in the interview. So she wants to hurt Holly Holm every round. All fighters should think like that, especially with the judging criteria, scoring criteria, as what it is. James Kendrick. I think we are all fans of Jack Della not writing off the opponent, but the body punching that Jack Della does is a huge advantage. Most of the fans of it. Yeah, you know what? That is a good point. Not a lot of body workers the other guy's face, even though he looks durable. And the most durable guys are often hurt to the body, right? So, yeah. Maybe I will pick Jack Della round 2 or round 3, but I still even if I do pick Jack Della round 2, I still might get cheeky with that over. Don't be surprised to see that somewhere in my plays, even if it's just a round robin filler. Jimmy Kudo, how bad will McKinney's defense be when he is facing another southpaw? You mentioned that before, but southpaws have trouble with other southpaw. Yeah, his defense in general, he really needs work on, and he knows that. As far as just he's not even afraid to throw stuff against southpaws. He looks really comfortable. He'll throw everything, spinning stuff, the kitchen sink. It just doesn't matter if he's facing a southpaw or orthodox. It's that wildness gets him countered. So I'm curious on what work McKinney's been doing. So that also really makes me want to stay away from the fight, and why I say the dog is live. Marcus Mustard, that fight's a pass for me, dog. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm not even sure what fight you're talking about, but I'm sure we're in agreements. Rain Lamina, Jack Slack calls them Black Explosive. Oh, Jesus. If you watch Sadiq Youssef in his first interview, he goes, Jack Slack says it a lot, but I actually am Black Explosive. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that term, too, and that's a term for a reason, because, again, it is, perhaps unfairly, is it racist? Racist? Perhaps unfairly, it is used for black athletes. Jin Karasu, why does Dana do that? Seems forced and unnecessary since hardcore's love because Dana likes to promote his own stuff. He likes to promote his own people, his own agenda, and he is the boss, so he gets to do that, whether we like it or not, unfortunately, right? But that is kind of his MO, right? Whether it's the power slap, whether it's whatever his personal agenda is. So that is what it is. Marcus Number. I don't know. I don't watch his fucking Friday cooking show either. Yeah, neither do I. It's always terrible stuff. And not even taste-wise. That sounds gross. They're not even trying to be creative to get that reaction. They're just we're going to sprinkle, furikake on a hot dog and roll it in a fucking 3 bums jizz cookie circle or something. God damn, it's disgusting. I actually would watch Dana White eat that. Jesus, Dan. Ghost Phantom, Norma Dumont on the main card under a Holly Holm main event. I am just baffled as you are, Dan. I know maybe we're setting up Holly Holm's retirement fight there, huh? Maybe they do think deeper in layers. Chris Persnell did a deep dive on Azat Maxim's skills. He's a really bad matchup for Nam since Azat drives a high pace and has good takedowns, but bad guard passing and rides. Okay, it sounds like it checks out. Chris Burnell is one of the few guys in MMA space that specifically focuses on Asian MMA, so he's a good dude. Awesome. Good shout there. I'm definitely going to check that out. That name does sound familiar. And good notes. Maybe that will keep me away. Maybe I'll still put Nam in like a KO as a flyer for like a round robin if I don't have anything else to put. Maybe that'll keep me away from any more wishful thinking in that department. All right, recapping what I got for UFC Vegas 77. 49. Sorry, rubbing my nose more than Conor McGregor post tough episode here. All right, taking. It's in a weird order, bout order. Sorry, folks. Taking home or down. What the fuck? Taking Shitara Bueno Silva over home. Taking Park over Duraev. Taking Beaumont over Chandler Handler. Taking. I don't know who I'm taking over Prado Azatar. Check me out at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day. Quick picks and prognostications at MMAJunkie.com on Fight Day. Taking Sajikov over McKinney, but the dog is live. Taking Melsick Bags over Tucker Lutz. Sorry about that. Taking Dudakova over Nunes. Taking Jack Della Maddalena over Basil Hafez. Taking Costa over Lingo. Taking Elder over Valdez. We'll see where I end up over Nam over Maxim. Obviously, Maxim is the smart pick. We'll probably take Smith over Perez, but we'll stay away regardless. Check me, my quick picks and prognostications on Fight Day plays. Iron Turtle minus 148, 1.5 unit. Impulsively, and I'm mad at myself for doing it. We'll see. Hopefully she just wins anyways. Impulsively took Shitara at plus 152, 1 unit. Shitara inside the distance, half a unit, plus 250. We'll be sprinkling 0.17 U apiece for just over 2 units exposure. Shitara rounds 3, rounds 4, rounds 5. Also waiting on a better number for Iron Turtle, round 3. Might get cheeky with an over, with the over 1.5 for Della Maddalena. And Basil. We'll see if Nam by KO makes it in or anything silly like that. We'll see if I sprinkle or make it in a round robin for Dudakova inside angles. Nothing else too hardcore to give you guys. Thank you guys for really getting in here. Appreciate the love. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. Ghost Phantom, great show, Dan. Always good analysis. Thank you. Jin Karasu, really enjoyed the show. See you next week if I remember. If I remember too, buddy, right? Good luck all from Marcus Mustard. Appreciate the positive energy and you joining along there, Mustard. Always a good show, Dan. Chat was respectful, and that's all we can ask. Hey, that was. And thank you, Jimmy Kudo and Ghost Phantom, for holding down the house so they cannot bust a talking heads on us and burn down the house. Instead, we got the good talking heads in the house. Jin Karasu, you can find personnel breakdown of Azat if you look up MMA Ecosystem Azat. Good shout there. I may have to check that out if I have the time. Going to get out of here. Good luck on your picks and plays, folks. And always protect your neck.